My name is Dr. Saqib Habib. I graduated in May of 2019. So I am self-employed. I am the owner and CEO of Swift Physical Therapy and Performance. Currently on my first year with that practice. My current role is everything. I am the lead therapist slash business owner. I run the facility as well as treat the patients. I go market. I go do everything that's get done from the janitor work to cleaning up the facility to cleaning after patient care to creating programs and getting patients to the door. So I'm a man of many hats currently, but hopefully over time they'll change. But right now, as a first year practice, those are all my roles that I kind of run with. The typical path for a physical therapist was essentially graduate and then go work for a clinic of some kind, right? There's multiple franchise clinics out there that you can work for. Some are great, some are not so great. My path was a little atypical, I would say. I am not your standard practice. I have a abundance of background. First and foremost, I don't take any insurance. I don't accept no insurances. I'm not in network with any insurances. I wanted to provide something different for my patients. As I graduated and I worked in a clinic, I realized that as a standard typical path, patients suffered. They weren't getting attention with their therapist, and I wasn't giving them the best attention. I didn't have the opportunity to. I was between multiple patients. So in my practice, I decided I'm going one-on-one with patients, one patient per hour, cash-based rate is set. They pay the rate, and the rest of it gets taken care of. They can get reimbursed from insurances, so they also have some way of getting some money in return. Um, in the typical setting, therapists have aides to help. They have things to document, so forth. Here, I have documents, but I have no aides to help. I'm with my patient the entire time. They're fully with me. They're fully invested in the programming and so forth. And it's not typical to see that these days, and I love it. I'm obsessed with it because my patients get the best care possible. We're getting them better faster. They're on the streets faster, and that's the brand. With my programming, there's a combination of strength and conditioning involved with physical therapy. And I was able to merge the gap. That's why I went back to PT school, because I wanted to merge the gap myself, because I used to be in strength and conditioning and I love training. So now my patients get the best of both worlds. And that's been the non-traditional way, because standard clinic, you get put these lower level exercises, but we never have the opportunity to progress a patient because either insurance cuts them off or they're just okay with it. Well, here we progress pretty quickly because insurance is going to dictate how I treat my patients. They're not limited to the number of visits. They're limited to what they want to limit themselves to. So I took a atypical path. And then I also went back for an orthopedic residency with Arcadia after PT school. And that definitely helped me excel as a clinician. So I got better skill with manually, even speaking, communication with patients, is just providing the best service for them. And I realized that this path I chose was the path for me. And I always tell my patients that I didn't pick the path picked me, because it just opened up itself. And here I am today, a year later, and it's been the best decision of my life. But first and foremost, you needed your doctorate, right, to become a PT. So I got that. I also went back, like I mentioned, and got my orthopedic residency and just went through that process and learned some more extra there. In my current role, so if you were to kind of replace my current role, it's not just about the clinical skills, and it's not just about what you do with the patients. It's about the other stuff, right? Because we talk about strength and conditioning, we talk about nutrition, we have a wellness component, talking about the mind, body, gut control, all those kind of aspects that are related to pain and pain modulation. So you have to be open-minded to learning different things and making those connections for your patient. You also have to have an abundance of communication skills. You have to have an abundance of just patience, of understanding a patient, learning from the patient, and realizing that they want to be understood. So you have to find a way to make that connection with them, from the behavioral aspect to the physical aspect to the mental aspect. I think those are the skills we learned at U Sciences / St. Joe's now, right? We learned about interprofessionalism because I have to build my own network in a sense, right? Finding doctors in the facility I can refer out to, finding pharmacists I can talk to, finding other PTs, OTs, chiros, massage therapists, whatever it may be, to network for my patients to help them. If I can't provide the care, who else can be in my network so I can refer out to the appropriateness? Having those communication skills is definitely one of the most important parts for sure. Yes, your clinical skills matter. You have to take care of the patient. You have to know how to plan their care, but be able to communicate those things and getting them to the best hands is also a big part of it. So those communication, like the interprofessional stuff that we as students like, oh, this sucks, we got to do it again, definitely made a difference, because now it's how do we speak to those professionals? I'm like, hey, I'm starting a company, a brand that's not normal. I'm providing different values here and different services, and I want your support. And having those conversations repeatedly. Also having those conversations with patients of why I don't take their insurances and why this route is a little more safer and better for them long term. And then other skills are your clinical skills, your hands-on skills, your patient care skills, your abiding by rules with HIPAA, OSHA, all those things that matter for state regulations, and making the patient feel comfortable. I think that's a skill itself, whether it's through speech or your hands. Those are a big component. And again, those are all things that we learn in school. So now it's just redefining those skills with, continuing education or just talking to other patients, having a mentor. I have 3 mentors right now that are on speed dial when I need them. And that's definitely a big resource for me. If students are going directly standard care for physical therapy, then I think it's whatever the professors tell you. I can say for a T that as a student, when they told us certain things to abide by and listen to, they definitely helped us. Even if it was the classes that we felt like had no purpose in physical therapy, I think now in this setting and where I am today had a purpose for me today. So it's abide by those. And also kind of one of the biggest things I did at U Sciences when I was there was I kind of branched out a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier today, we started a barbell club and doing those things, meeting other professionals. And some of those students in that club became the pharmacist I call today. I'm like, hey, I don't know what this drug is. Can you help me? So networking yourself, making friends. It's a small school, so you can make a lot of friends and make a lot of people there. I've also reached out to professors in the past that I'm like, hey, I need help with this. I can tell you right now, if they're Dr. Folkens and Dr. Knapp here for me at least once a week. I'm like, hey, I need help. And it's like, we took the extra step to build a relationship that went past like a student and teacher. We were kind of friends in a sense. We had jokes, we had conversations, and that made it more wholesome for us to be a part of, like knowing that, hey, they actually do have your back. They're going to be strict with you with certain things. They're going to tell you that this is how we do it because those things matter, but they're also going to be your friends after. And I think that was the biggest blessing for us, to realize that, like, even though we graduated, we can still call our professors and talk to them and have these conversations. So if students really want to be the best in the industry, it's be open-minded, go and learn, and explore other options. Go talk to other teachers, go talk to other students. I have a lot of friends that I talk to that weren't in the PT class, and they've been some of my closest friends till date. And they're different professionals, so they can help me currently, because I know that my network is small, but I have a bigger network outside that from those schools. And then go to events. I went to a lot of events there. I set up a lot of events. I went to a lot of events, but that's how I met people, and that definitely helped me for sure. Networking is big. So your network is what's going to make it or break you in the professional setting, right? Networking takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of guts to go out there and have these conversations. And I say go all in. So for me, I've used a big platform with social media to network, and I met a lot of great professionals off social media. I've also been to a lot of events that I don't see myself doing. Just last week, I went to, each city has a local chapter. So I went to a chapter meeting, and I'm sitting with a bunch of guys that are in their late 50s and 60s, and I'm in my early 30s, and I'm like, man, what do I talk about? But now I'm uncomfortable, so I have to open up a conversation and have those conversations. And don't be afraid to talk to strangers. I've always been a fan of talking to strangers, and you don't know what their story is, what they may be telling you, but they just have something to help you. And that stranger could be someone that pulls for you later on. That stranger could be someone that can guide you. In PT, every patient comes as a stranger, and I just have the blessing of being one-on-one with them the entire hour, so I can take that stranger and make them a friend. And my patients become friends in a sense, where I know that they can network for me, they can market for me, they can help. How you make them feel is how they're going to help you build your network. A lot of my patients leave here feeling great. They speak well of me, and they introduce me to another friend. And then I have that conversation with them. That becomes my network. I've gone to events that are free for the public. I've gone to events where I had to pay for tables to sit there just to talk to people and market. So I think networking is a lot of communication. It's just opening up and just getting yourself out there as much as you can, and just doing it not in a carefree way, but in a way of like, I'm going to go out there, just tell them what I'm about, and just run with that. And that's how you're going to continue to build that. And it's knowing that you're never going to be satisfied, because your network should always be growing. I'm still a year into it, still working on finding more connections, more things to build my network, because more people you can help out that way. I think initial barriers for me were more about the atypical route I took with the insurance versus non-insurance model. Going into a model where I'm not accepting insurance was a huge barrier. And I kind of overcame that barrier, just providing value and creating an experience that people aren't going to forget. And that definitely has helped me. In terms of Gender, I don't think that's a huge barrier in a sense. I don't think that was a big play. Age, I don't think that was a play. It was more of a mental thing for me. Am I too young to start my own business at this point? And I eventually got over that hump, and here we are. We did it because I've seen friends do it well, and I know if they were helping me, there were guidance tools that helped me. In terms of race, I don't run into that honestly. I would say a couple years, probably more than I do now. Um, I think now my biggest barrier is the insurance aspect, that no longer becomes an issue at this point. Being a year into it, people see the service, people see the value, and I think that's what it comes down to, is when we have those barriers, reminding yourself of the value you present with your work and what you're going to give the patient or you're going to give somebody. And despite the barrier that may be behind, if you stick to your value, you're definitely going to be successful in those terms. I think it's huge. Diversity, and we are blessed to be in a country where there's so much around us, so many different people, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and I think personally, being in a small business myself, that itself has a diversity to it. There's so many of us out there. And I'll tell you right now, Mike, that I've been talking to so many different entrepreneurs that might not be even PT related. They have never turned you away. They wanted you to be included. They wanted you to feel that because they don't want to see you crash and burn. They don't want to see you be unsuccessful. They want you to rave and rage. We're realizing now that because of the diversity, there's over 40 million people in this world to help. And I'm not going to take care of that person alone, right? So have a big network that's all inclusive, to have everything together, know that our network can help as many people as we can. And having a different background, like I have friends that'll be my translators for certain languages I can't speak. I have friends that would pop in here with patients so they can help me make a better connection. So it's just being in that environment where you know that you have a control group where I know people are going to come. And if I can't speak to them or communicate, how can I get someone in there? That's the beauty of our diversity, right? That's the beauty of having that network that's going to be massive abundance there. I think giving my background, coming from a diverse background, given from the background of different country, coming to this country as an immigrant, has just motivated me to provide the best. Because even if I look at the route I've taken, I don't find a lot of people in my position with my background taking these steps. I know a lot of friends that are in the same boat as me, and you know they're in the standard care and they're doing great, they're happy, they love it, but that wasn't meant for me. And I think the change I'm bringing in is knowing that the background I came from wasn't always the best background. So I know that if I can come out of that background and do something well for myself, I can help people do it and empower other people to make those motives. And like I said, in this company, a lot of times my younger patients end up leaving here motivated to do other things aside PT. It's like because we're able to have those conversations and say, like, hey, I was there in your shoes. I've been in those positions. I've been rejected by this. I get those things. Like that's all part of who I am, right? So you can spill that into somebody else. And that's just background. Forget the gender, forget the race, forget what condition you're coming from. Just having that normal human to human conversation and just being all in with them to hone in on that. It's definitely helped them a lot. I think if they're going the route of entrepreneurship and wanting to be a better entrepreneur, I've lately been following a lot of things from like Tony Robbins. I've actually even taken a business mastery course from him a few times. So like a big motive lifestyle coach. I read every book and Barnes and Noble has to offer for professional and business growth. And I mean, I've read over 300 books in the last couple of years just to kind of continuously go into that. So there's an abundance of tools. I think before you decide to buy a resource or buy a thing, it's look at what exactly is required of you. So dive deep into yourself. I had to dive into myself, like, what am I missing? In business, I was missing a lot of things. I had no business background. So I actually went back and learned a lot of things from businesses, got mentors, read those books that helped. One of the biggest books that I read personally that changed my life was Awake a Giant Within from Tony Robbins. And that was a book about just finding that inner communication and that inner person to get over those fears that you had, right? Fear of business, fear of success, fear of failure, whatever fear you may have, getting over that hump because you found the next version of you, the best version of you. From there professionally, you know, I went back to Arcadia and I got an orthopedic residency because I knew as a clinician, if I'm going on my own, I needed those extra hands-on skills. I needed to take another year of school to learn those hands-on skills and have another mentor through that program or two mentors to that program to help me build that basis of like the clinical skills. In terms of business, there's an abundance of resource out there. Entrepreneurs, again, they don't go sour. There's so many small business practices that I know that I've reached out to, so many human beings that I've talked to. Like I literally had some of the most intellectual, best conversations about growing a business with the local coffee shop guys. right? And they have nothing to do with PT. They have nothing to do with anything. They just knew how to run a business and establish those things. Some of my best friends are completely remote with their job, and they had the best advice for me. A local alumni, Beach, he started his own company with kettlebell athletes and his own company in San Diego. And he's been one of my biggest mentors to help me personally and guide me through those processes too. So it's like, there's books there, there's courses you can take, there's everything, but there's also alumni, right? There's also people that that graduated a year before me that are doing it that I can reach out to help me out. So I think it's just using everything in your resource. There's no one specific book that helped me the most except for the one I read, but I think it was just being around an environment that just wanted me to do better and actually chase the vision I had for myself. I think they could have shown us the path in a sense of like being an entrepreneur for physical therapy clinics. When we went to clinicals and when we went to, the standard, we were always taught, like, our professors did a great job of telling us, hey, you shouldn't be seeing more than 1 or 2 patients an hour. You shouldn't be seeing this many an hour. They did that great job. And I still remember when I went back to TA and I had a conversation with Dr. V, I was like, Dr. V, I saw 4 people this hour. He goes, why? That shouldn't happen. And he's like reminding me, and I'm a year into practice, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think a lot of the stuff that we were always presented with, we had clinicians from all over the world come help us and guide us and show us, but they all worked for somebody. They weren't really entrepreneurs of some kind. And believe it or not, from USI, I can name 6 of us that are all entrepreneurs doing the same thing I'm doing in different locations within Jersey. And it's like having someone like that come pop into a class saying, hey, there's other options for you, and paving the way. The business side was something I'm still learning and I'm still adapting to. And I think that's something that, I don't think you could fit in a science curriculum, but maybe incorporating that if there's a vision there for most part. But I think the best advice I've gotten is saying, listen, if standard care isn't for you, find a different route. And there's this whole entrepreneurial side, cash-based pre-T that exists. I didn't know about it until 2.5 years after working for a company. At one point, I was like, I want to leave the industry. Like, I can't do this type of care. I don't want to see 3 people an hour. I don't want to see 2 an hour.
Mhm.
So I think if we knew about those other options early on, my mind would have been already turning about like, hey, cash base does exist. Because even then, I always had a vision of having my own clinic. I've always had a vision of having my own spot, but it was never to be in this position of a cash based practice. It was more so like I can go in the networks again in that nature. And when I realized that there was other options, I was like, wow, this has just opened a whole new door for me,